What's up, gamers? Welcome back to another episode of Macros and Munchies. So for today's episode, we got a steak bite bowl. So it's just basically steak bites with diced potatoes that are cooked in the oven. But I'm super excited for this because it's really simple. It's gonna take a little bit of time because of the different ingredients and the cook times. But it's super simple, basically just like 2 ingredients and, you know, the seasonings and all that. You already get that picture. But main 2 ingredients. And it's gonna be super flavorful, super tasty, and I love steak. And this is a little bit of a cheaper cut of steak that's actually leaner, so it's gonna be higher in protein, and it's gonna be pretty relatively low in calories for how much protein you're getting in. So I'm really excited for this, but without further ado, let's get right into it. All right, y'all, so this is technically an optional step. This is just gonna really add to the flavor, but it's pretty much all gonna be calories and flavor. There's going to be no nutritional value in this other than fat and calories, pretty much. It's not going to be like protein in this or anything. This is literally to add to your steak bites to make them way more flavorful and just add to the experience a lot. And I'm not really too worried about being super low calories, so you can just completely skip this step if you do not care about it. But if you really want to up the flavor and make it just taste a lot better, we're going to be making some compound butter. So like I said, I'm gonna be making 2 servings, and that's just because I'm making some for my family as well. So you only really need 1 stick of butter. It looks like a half a stick, but this isn't 1 full stick of butter. They just condensed it to make it like a bit wider or whatever. But you need 1 stick of butter. I'm gonna be using 2. And then you need some rosemary, thyme, and garlic. Today, I'm not gonna be cutting up the garlic because I literally just bought some. So if you want to make this step a little bit easier, garlic is the one thing that I really just, it's a little bit inconvenient to cut because it's very strong, gets stuck on your fingers a lot easier. It's sticky, it gets stuck to the knife, gets your fingers all sticky, etc. So I just bought some already minced garlic, and then I prefer this stuff right here that's not in actual liquid or olive oil already. I prefer just plain old minced garlic. Or if you just want to save the money, you don't really care about taking a little extra time, just get your garlic and mince it up. And obviously, gonna get our little rosemary leaves here and just a little bit of rosemary, a little bit of thyme, a little bit of garlic, and some softened butter. So let's get started with that. So grab yourself some kind of bowl. I'm gonna just put both of these sticks of butter in there. And obviously 1 stick of butter is, I believe, 8 tablespoons. So if you wanna throw that in there, like I said, this is just gonna be extra calories, but a lot of the times extra calories equals extra flavor, and that is certainly the case with this. So just go ahead and grab whatever kind of fork, whisk, whatever thing you want, just mash it all up really good. And if it's not all the way softened, it might be a little bit more difficult, but as you mix it up, it'll gradually get easier and easier. Now that your butter's all mashed up in there, softened, let's start with this. So although I know, pretty stupid of me to get this if it's too big in the first place, considering I bought it because it was already minced. It's just easier than me mashing it up, peeling off the thing, etc., etc. I don't have an exact amount for you, but I'm just gonna assume this is, again, 2 servings. I'm gonna do about, give or take, 2 tablespoons, because honestly, you need a lot of garlic for this. Like, it seems like a lot, and it is a lot, but I'm telling you right now, this butter soaks up a lot of that flavor. Maybe even, honestly, a little bit more. 2 tablespoons, 2.5 for 2. So around a tablespoon of minced garlic is what I'm assuming, probably like 3-4 cloves. And I'm just gonna cut this up even further. And if you are using regular, just like whole garlic, obviously just mince it up really small. All right, these pieces are really small now, so I'm gonna go ahead and add this to the garlic, or to the butter. Like I said, it is a lot, but I'm telling you, for some reason, when you mix it with butter, you need a lot more than you normally would. So now that we've got that in there, let's go ahead and start on our thyme, which arguably is gonna take the longest out of this butter process. So the thing about this thyme is, yes, you can just pull it out and then cut it up into small pieces. But the thing is the stem pieces are really thick. So you're gonna be kind of biting, like same with the garlic, you're gonna be biting into pieces of stem if you just chop this thyme off like it. So the time consuming part is going to be pulling like this, just getting the little leaves and then just using your fingernail to kind of pull them off like that. And it's gonna seem like you're putting a lot of thyme in here, but the reason for that is these pieces are really small, and you're gonna put more than you actually think that you need, because I'm telling you, I will put enough in there and be like, all right, that's enough. And I'll be like, dang, I hardly smell it. So I don't even know how many sprigs of thyme this is, but you're gonna need a good handful of this stuff. And especially me, because I am doing a double serving. So, although I have a whole thing of this, I'm gonna say probably a quarter. Yeah, probably like almost a quarter of this entire package is what I'm gonna use if you are doing one single serving. But like I said, what you wanna do is grab these and I use my fingernail and then start from the top and go down, drop them on my cutting board, and then I grab my knife, scoop them up, and then just toss them into the bowl. And then if you want to be extra with it, you can even get the little tiny pieces and then cut them up even further. I think that's unnecessary, as this step can already seem a bit unnecessary, but this is the lengths we go to around here if we want to take a stop at Flavor Town, if you know what I'm saying. So just get a ton of thyme. I know there's a reason why it's called thyme. It's gonna take time to do it, but get all your thyme and then just take all the things off the sprigs, all the little leaves, and then we're gonna go ahead and put that in our garlic butter. And you're just gonna wanna smell it out until it's enough for you, because I like a good amount of thyme in mine. Some people don't. I don't really care for too much rosemary because it's super strong. So just keep mixing up the butter as you add the ingredients and ask yourself, what do I like the smell of? What do I think it could add if I added like a little bit more of an ingredient? What would be best for me? And lastly, we're gonna add our rosemary. So this is arguably the strongest ingredient. So I'm gonna start with just, I wanna say one sprig. I'm gonna just start with half, again, just to be safe. I think one sprig should definitely be good, but I'm definitely gonna start with half, because I'm telling you, y'all, this rosemary is really strong. So again, keep in mind, I have 2 servings in here, but what I'm gonna do is go ahead and chop this up. Be careful with y'all's fingers, obviously. And this is gonna be like the thickest and probably hardest ingredient out of all of them, so you're the most likely to bite into this. So I do advise really, really chopping it up really small, almost into a powder. And at this point, screw it, might as well just finish the sprig. As you can tell, I like to change my mind a lot when I'm cooking, but that's the fun about it, honestly, is just going with the flow and trying new things. So just keep in mind that it doesn't always have to be perfect, and perfection in your craft comes with you experimenting over long periods of time, trying new things, seeing what works for you, and just allowing yourself to free flow. If you never change anything, you can never get better, really. Like, even if you're not changing the, like, per se, the ingredients, or you're not changing the ingredients in something, you can still change the way that you do it and tweak it a little bit, like take something out a little bit early, take something out a little bit later, etc. So there's always something to change. So don't be afraid to kind of be a little bit here and there with it. It's a lot different than baking. Baking is very precise. It needs to be a specific way to have a specific outcome. But cooking, it's a lot more free flow, which is why I personally like it. But like I said, don't be afraid to change your mind and take things off and play with them a little, because as you get more experience and do it more times, you'll figure out the right thing intuitively as you go through time. Not this kind of time, but literal time. And you figure things out. So let's get one last mix here, and then I think we'll add a little bit more time and we'll be good. Let's see if it needs anything else. Oh, that's good. Honestly, doesn't need anything. Do you think it needs anything?
No, that's on the money.
Oh my God.
On the money.
That is freaking good. With some sourdough bread.
Dude, sourdough.
Perfect. Okay, I lied. No more time, nothing. That is freaking off the chain. Get some plastic wrap, and then just go ahead and get a nice little long piece of that. Put all of that nice goodness on there. I'm gonna leave a little bit out, that's so that there's some still softened. Just gonna kind of try to even it out, level it out as much as you can. Let's go ahead and get this going right here. And then just roll, 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 roll. Cut that off, tail this, tuck it, and then just cut this front off, boom. So now what we're gonna do is this is in a nice roll of butter. We're just gonna go ahead and put this in the fridge, let this cool, so this will solidify and be nice and hard so we can just cut little pieces off as we want, throw it into our steak bites when we throw it in the microwave, whatever, mix it up, stir it up, or just use it for later use on bread. It's gonna be really awesome. I highly recommend y'all try this. But for now, I'm just gonna leave some just a tiny bit softened so that whenever my first round or whatever you wanna call it, my first serving of steak bites are done, I can just throw this right in there. I won't have to worry about throwing it in the microwave. So, like I said, throw this in the fridge. And now let's get started on our potatoes. For the potatoes, obviously you're gonna need your cutting board, and then you're gonna want your scale if you care about calories. So what we're gonna go ahead and do is put this on here, tear that, reset it to 0, and we're gonna be using 1,500 grams or 1.5 kilograms of potatoes. So we're gonna do that once they are completely peeled, because when you peel them, weight comes off the potato, right? So you don't want exactly 1.5 kilograms of potatoes before you peel them, because then you're losing like another 200 plus grams of potato that you're not even gonna be eating. So you're gonna be getting less. So you're gonna wanna go over a little bit. So I'm at about, let's see here. So that's about 1670 grams. That's a little bit over, which is what we want. But I have a feeling based on me doing this before that I'm still gonna be under by a little bit, and I'm fine with the calories, so I'm gonna go a little bit extra over and eat it. But this gets me to, let's see, I'll probably cut this one in half, honestly. So this gets me to 800 grams. So I'm probably gonna be a little bit over, which is fine, but at the end of the day, this is just an estimate. So once I dice these up, so now that I know that I'm for sure gonna have 1,500 grams, what you're gonna do is wash these off, and then we're gonna go ahead and peel them and then dice them up. And go ahead, get some kind of plate. We're gonna put these off too. I like to put these in, or just do this directly into the trash can, but I'm just showing y'all. It's not that complicated if you've never peeled potatoes before. This is honestly, I don't know how, but this is like a really old potato peeler we have, but it works really good. It's not like mega old, but we definitely got this like in the early 2000s. And I'm telling you, this is the best potato peeler I've gotten. Any new one that I get has nothing compared to this. So shout out to all the old utensils that we still use in our kitchen. But just like that, so I'll show you an example of the smallest one first. Let's go ahead and cut this bad boy in half, right? And it does not have to be perfect. Keep that in mind, folks, is we're gonna be, if you plan on doing meal preps, especially over like a period of weeks and stuff like that, you eating like not the same size amount of potatoes in your meal preps of 1 week is not gonna have an impact on your total, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's not gonna have a major impact on your end result if you tend to be, if you're gonna actually be meal prepping for a long period of time. Like, keep that in mind. Like, something as small as getting the exact amounts of ratio, macro ratio in each day is really gonna have very little effect unless you're gonna be competing in something like Mr. Olympia or some very, very, very big bodybuilding event or something like that. But in general, you just wanna cut them up into little slices like this. Cube them up nice and good. And once you got 1.5 kilograms of potatoes, then we're gonna go ahead and oil them up. All right, homies, so now that we have all of our potatoes diced, what we're gonna go ahead and do is add 2 tablespoons of olive oil. If you're trying to save a little calories, you can probably get away with just 1. I think you'll be totally fine. I just like to add 2 because it helps them prevent sticking to the pan, as well as it kind of makes them crisp up a little bit more, because we wanna get a nice balance of when we throw these in the oven of crispiness on the outside without being burnt and still being nice and soft on the inside. And this oil really does help them crisp up. So measure out 2 tablespoons if you want to be precise of olive oil. And go ahead and mix these up really good. So now that we got these things oiled up, we're gonna go ahead and do is add our seasoning. So this seasoning, I gotta thank Kason Granger, bodybuilder, for this recommendation. I'm telling you, this always good, always good. You can figure out your own potato seasoning if you have a special seasoning or mixed blend of seasonings that you'd like to add to your potatoes. But this is like perfect for me. I don't need to add anything to this. I love it. It works good. You just really want to heavily season all of your potatoes, and you won't need to add any salt, no pepper, nothing. So it's gonna seem like you're adding a lot as you continue to keep mixing it, but you really want these potatoes super seasoned so you won't have to add anything to it. It's literally 0 calories anyways, so you can add as much as you want. It's gonna add to the flavor, and let's do it. We're gonna use a lot of seasoning here. It's gonna seem like a lot at first, but like I said, you wanna mix, mix, mix. And by the time they're completely done mixing, they should look super, you should see the color change. Obviously, you wanna see the seasoning sticking on them, but there should be like a nice, good color that you have on all of your potatoes once they're fully seasoned. Let's add some more. Gonna add a little bit more, because usually what happens is I stop right there, and then whenever I take it out of the oven, it needs a little bit more. And when you put the seasoning on before and it cooks into it, the flavor just penetrates better rather than it just sitting on the outside. So I could probably add even a little bit more to this. I would recommend, honestly, y'all could just stop here. I think this is a nice, good color. But again, I'm going to add even a little bit more. Some people don't go this crazy on seasoning, but around here, we make sure everything is hella seasoned. All right, so now that we've got all our potatoes nice oiled and seasoned, we're gonna go ahead and get a sheet pan. I use 2 just so that my pan isn't overcrowded. And normally what helps so that they don't stick to the pan as much, especially if you don't wanna scratch your pan up when you're getting the potatoes up, because they do tend to stick, is add a layer of like aluminum foil. I don't have any right now, unfortunately, so it is what it is. They're gonna get stuck to the bottom, but if you don't put them in there for too long, they shouldn't get too stuck to it. All right. And honestly, I probably could have put this all in one pan if I really wanted to, but I don't like overcrowding them. It just allows them, in my humble opinion, to be able to cook more properly when it's not a superly overcrowded pan. You want to give a little bit of space in these. So there we go. Before we throw these in here, just so that they're still hot whenever our meat comes out, I'm gonna just let these sit for a little bit, and let's go ahead and cut up our meat, and then I'll let you know when to throw these in. So for the steak bites, the kind of meat that I'm gonna be using, because it's relatively lean, really high protein and not too much fat, we're gonna trim the fat off this obviously, is picanha. So on here it says beef sirloin picanha roast, and on here it says beef petite sirloin steak. So this is basically top sirloin cap. So it's gonna be a little bit cheaper than the top sirloin, and also I wanna say it's around the same protein, but the only additional difference is that when it's sirloin cap, it's gonna have this little cap of fat here, which we're gonna cut off. So it's gonna be a little bit cheaper, but I'm pretty sure it's like the same meat. It's top sirloin. And it's one of the cheaper meats. It's gonna be nice and tender still, and it's really lean. So, I mean, it's gonna be a lean protein source. It's gonna have lots of protein, and all we gotta do is cut this fat off. It's not as much intramuscularly, like a ribeye is gonna have a lot of fat in the meat, so you can't really cut that out, right? So for this, the main fat cap is gonna be at the top, and then if you can buy it like this will work as well. You're gonna need to do a little bit more trimming of the fat, because as you can see right here, the fat cap is on the back. So we're just gonna trim this off so that way we're not eating all of that, because that's literally all calories. And the main thing that we're gonna be focused on is eating this. But what you're gonna want is 3 pounds of the actual meat. So again, same as the potatoes, you're gonna need to buy a little bit extra, because we're gonna be cutting this fat cap off, and that's gonna make it lose some weight, right? So we need 3 pounds of actual meat, and that's what we're gonna be aiming for. So let's start trimming this. So I'm not gonna lie, I'm not a pro when it comes to trimming meat. I believe this is my first time really trimming meat, so I'm gonna try this little small paring knife. I feel like it's gonna work awesome. Especially if you keep this meat cold, it's gonna allow the fat to be harder, which will let you cut it a little bit easier. So what we're gonna do is probably try and hold this right here and just get a good grip so that we can, there we go. And then just cut as close to the fat as you can so that we're not losing a whole lot of meat here. So it's gonna be a little bit slippery, but the main thing that we're trying to do here is just cut this layer of fat off. That way, nice. Okay, yeah, so as long as you have a sharp knife, it should be relatively easy, especially if you cool your meat first. It'll allow it to be a little bit more solidified. And our goal is to have around 3 pounds of lean beef. There we go. And just like that, we have this whole cap of fat off. And as you can see, there's a little bit down here. It is what it is. We lose a little bit when we do that, but the most important part is trimming this fat off so we can get nice and high protein, nice and low calories. So just go ahead and trim all the fat off your meat if you can. If you want, you can buy these pre-cut like this, and it should be a little bit easier because the caps are pretty thin. It's gonna be pretty easy to cut it off, but it will be cheaper if you do it this way and buy it as a whole. Got all this fat off, and this is how our meat is looking. So relatively lean. There's still gonna be some fat on there. I'm not too worried about getting all of this and getting it perfect, but you should have about 3 pounds of meat. So let's go ahead and weigh it really quick. So we are at just under 3 pounds. That's all right. Maybe I should have bought a little bit more. I think I bought just about 3.5 pounds. So maybe buy a little bit more than that, maybe like 3 3/4 pounds. But again, I'm not too worried about it being perfect, but just keep that in mind. You're gonna wanna buy a little bit extra. So now what we're gonna do is just dice this up into cubes. The best thing is if you can see the grain, you do want to have nice tender pieces. And think about it this way, the connective tissue is meant, like muscles are meant to be strong and hold together. And they work when these muscle fibers go across. So obviously if it's one band, it's gonna be really nice and tight. If you cut them in long pieces along with the grain, the reason why it's gonna be tougher and more chewy is because of the fact that those muscle fibers are really strong when they're in long segments. So when you cut them horizontally or against the grain, rather than it being one long band of connective tissue that is meant to be held together, you're cutting it across so that it's a bunch of small bands that are kind of connected together and being held. I usually like to square out my meat and then cut the weird shaped pieces first. So let's get it here, and that should be good for this. And what we're gonna do is, the grain is running this way. So what we're gonna do is get it a nice piece in half like that with the grain, and then we're gonna wanna cut it against the grain into our chunks. So just like that, boom, done. So you're gonna wanna do that with all your meat. All right, so now that our meat is all cut up into little cubes, we're gonna go ahead and add some olive oil. I forgot to mention, technically speaking, you don't need to add olive oil to the potatoes, but I would highly recommend it. But for this meat, you really do wanna add some olive oil to it. So let's go ahead and add 1 tablespoon of olive oil. And I'm actually gonna add 1.5 tablespoons of olive oil. And let's mix that up in there. Okay, make sure you get all your meat nice and mixed up. I think 1 should suffice, but I usually opt for a little bit more oil just to make sure that everything gets even coverage and is able to hold as much seasoning as possible. But all we're gonna use for this is salt, pepper, and garlic powder. You can add other stuff if you want, but all I really think it needs, especially when you add the garlic butter or the garlic and herb compound butter to it, is salt, pepper, garlic powder. So let's go ahead and add a good amount. What I would recommend, especially if you're using the garlic and herb butter, it's gonna be salty because it's salted butter, right? So don't add too much salt to this. I would recommend adding a little bit less salt than you would if you were to not use the butter. That way the butter doesn't make it way too salty. So let's go ahead and add maybe, I would say honestly, that's good. I don't have exact measurements, so I'm sorry about that, y'all, but you do want to make sure everything is heavily seasoned. So got our garlic powder, okay. And then I don't have a pepper shaker, so I'm gonna have to do fresh cracked black pepper. And then just mix everything all up, nice and good. All right, we mixed it up, and then let's add it once again. Not too crazy on the salt. I think I'm done with the salt for now. That's all the salt I'm gonna add in total, but add some more garlic powder and then some more black pepper. And technically the best thing you want to do is let this sit for a little bit so that the seasoning has time to work its way into the meat. I don't really have a lot of time to do that right now, so I'm just going to go ahead and start cooking. But as soon as you are done mixing in all your meats, let's go ahead and throw those potatoes right in. All right, so we're gonna go ahead as per recommendation of the recipe I saw online for potatoes. They said about 390 degrees Fahrenheit for 25 minutes. So I'm gonna try that. Like I said, something new, but my normal recommendation in case these don't turn out right or come out too crispy, not crispy enough, whatever, I tend to do 350 degrees for about 45 to 50 minutes. But like I said, we're trying something new. So if it doesn't work, I guess try what I would normally do. So first, let's just put this thing on around medium. I'm using a cast iron, so it's gonna hold heat better. So maybe a medium or slightly less should be good. And I'm gonna start off with about 1 tablespoon of this butter. Let's just throw in some of these steak bites here. You do not wanna overcrowd the pan. That's gonna be key. So don't overcrowd the pan too much, but just throw in enough to decently cover it so that, because water or juices are gonna come out of this meat. And if you fill the pan up too much, the whole bottom is going to be covered, completely covered in meat juice. And it's going to be almost boiling the meat rather than crisping it up and cooking it like how you want it to. All right, so this is what it should look like as it starts to start cooking. You want that nice bubbling action because once some of the meat juice cooks out, it's going to allow it to crisp up because of the butter. And this is kind of what we're going to be aiming for, although my camera quality isn't amazing. You want it to be nice and crispy on the outside while still being juicy and tender enough. And the main thing you're looking for is just a nice char on your meat. And I think our meat is almost done. And this right here is exactly what you're looking for, a nice good char on all of your pieces of steak. And just go ahead and finish that out with all of your steak bites. Potatoes are done. I'm not going to lie to y'all. I think the way to go might be 350 degrees for about 40 to 50 minutes because yes, these do look cooked good enough. They're nice and decently crispy on the outside and they're soft on the inside. But as you can see, there's a lot of stuff stuck on the bottom of the pan and these look like, if I try to pull one off, yeah, they're stuck to the bottom. They are crispy, but they're a lot more stuck on the bottom than they would be normally. So I would recommend 350 for about 40 to 50 minutes. But these do look like they came out decently. All right, y'all, here's the final product for the steak bites. I used about 1 tablespoon of butter per pound of meat. You should be able to get away with that if you have the right temperature. But regardless, I have all my potatoes, all my steak. Just go ahead and separate them into your respective containers. I'm gonna do 6 servings. So I'm gonna just weigh out, or you can just eyeball it, how much you want of each in each serving. That way you have an equal amount. But let's get this taste test. All right, looks amazing. I went ahead and put a little bit of compound butter on top of these steak bites. Let's taste it. All right, time for the taste test. Let's see how it tastes, especially, and I'm gonna even add a little bit more of this garlic butter, even on the potatoes a little bit. Let's see how this tastes. Bon appetit. Yep. The potatoes and the beef really complement each other really good if you get a good bite of both. Amazing. And this butter, like I said, it just complements it so well. It's really like I'm eating, well, it kind of is. I was about to say, it's like I'm eating steak and potatoes like at an actual restaurant, but meal prep form. Amazing. If you cook this meat right, it'll come out really tender still. It won't be dry. It'll be nice and crispy. Have a great crispy feeling and charred flavor. And these potatoes complement it perfectly. Perfect saltiness, not too much of anything. I'm not gonna lie, I'm really happy. I was afraid it wasn't gonna come out as good. Because normally I cook them as whole steaks to prevent them obviously from getting too dry, and when you cook them into small pieces, they tend to burn easier, but this tastes awesome. Very, very good. Highly recommend the butter with it though. The butter is really gonna set it off. Dude, I could eat this as a meal at a restaurant. I would pay for this
It's even better the fact that I'm going to eat it as a meal prep. Like, I'm not going to be thinking when I'm eating this, oh, gotta eat my meal prep. No, it literally just like a normal meal. So definitely would recommend this. This came out as good as I thought it was going to be, maybe even a little better. Yeah, nothing more to it. Steak and potatoes, or garlic and herb steak bites. Meal prep, highly recommend. 10 out of 10. I'll put the macros up on screen here for y'all. And definitely be sure to leave a like and let me know if you have any more recommendations or things that you'd like to see me make videos on. Hopefully y'all got to cook this with me and are enjoying it as much as I am. I will see y'all homies later. Peace out, gamers.